Forbidden history reveals the hidden narrative of humanity's origin. What if all you believed about humanity's beginnings is incomplete? What if the tale we've accepted, the one shared in Sunday schools, debated in academic circles, and hinted at in ancient writings, only scratches the surface of a deeper, more enigmatic truth? Before continuing, please subscribe to our channel and like this video so we can continue creating quality content for you. Tonight we enter forbidden realms. We will address questions that challenge the core of human history issues long ignored, suppressed, or neglected over centuries. Within the oldest texts lie hints that the origins of humanity are not as straightforward as commonly believed. Comment 1 if you believe there's a hidden story we've never been told. Comment 2 if you think the traditional account is mostly accurate but still leaves room for interpretation. Most people think they know the story God created the heavens and the earth, then formed Adam, the first human from dust, in an ideal garden. It seems straightforward and complete. But what if this isn't the entire truth? What if Adam was not the first human to inhabit the earth? What if others existed before, alongside, or beyond the limits of that well-known garden? This is not some fringe conspiracy or baseless speculation. Rather, it involves revisiting ancient texts with new perspectives, examining original languages, and confronting questions that scholars have debated for thousands of years. Questions that could radically alter our understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. Before moving on, I want to clarify something. This journey we're embarking on will challenge you. It may unsettle long-held beliefs and prompt you to rethink assumptions you didn't realize you held. However, I promise that by the end, you will gain a richer, deeper grasp of the enigma of human existence. You won't merely know the story, you'll comprehend its hidden layers. So relax, keep an open mind, and get ready to explore humanity's untold origin. What lies ahead is more than ancient history. It's a vital key to understanding our true identity. Let's begin at what is traditionally called the beginning. Most imagine humanity's creation as a single clear story. God creates the world in 6 days, forms Adam from dust, places him in Eden, then creates Eve from his rib, the first humans, the ancestors of all people, the start of everything. But here's where it becomes intriguing. If you carefully read Genesis' first chapters, truly carefully, you'll see something often overlooked. There are actually 2 creation accounts, and they differ significantly. For centuries, scholars have debated how to reconcile them. Some say they contradict, others say they complement. Yet few have considered that these might be 2 completely separate events. Let me explain. Genesis 1 offers a grand cosmic overview of creation, like viewing the universe unfolding from a high satellite perspective. Day by day, order rises from chaos, light separates from darkness, waters divide land, appears plants grow, stars shine, animals multiply. Finally, on the 6th day, mankind is created. Notice the wording: God created mankind in his own image. Male and female, he created them, not a singular man or woman, but humanity collectively. This occurs after all animals are formed as the crowning achievement in God's cosmic masterpiece. This narrative is majestic, universal, and expansive. It speaks of the entire human species, blessed with God's image and given dominion over the earth. There are no names or locations, just a grand statement that all humanity reflects the divine image. But when we move to the next chapter, everything shifts. Genesis 2 feels like zooming in from that satellite view to a close-up documentary shot. Suddenly, it's not humanity in general, but one particular man. The Lord God forms him from earth's dust, breathes life into his nostrils, and places him in a garden called Eden in the east. This isn't about humanity's cosmic creation, it's the personal creation of an individual named Adam. Most people attempt to reconcile these accounts by suggesting Chapter 2 is just a more detailed close-up of day 6 in Chapter 1, a zoomed-in shot following a wide-angle view. But what if that's not the case? What if they describe 2 entirely separate events? Consider this chapter. 1 shows humans created male and female together after animals. Chapter 2 depicts the man formed. First then, animals are brought to him, and only after that is the woman made from his rib. This is not merely a different perspective, but a different chronological order altogether. Another detail often missed appears just before God forms Adam in chapter 2. The text says there was no man to work the ground, not that no man existed, but no one to till, cultivate, or tend the soil. This implies Adam was created not due to a lack of humans, but to fulfill a specific role caring for a particular place. The Hebrew term for work here is avad, which can mean to cultivate but also to serve, minister, or worship, the same word later used to describe priest duties in the temple. Thus, Adam was not merely a gardener, but a priest, a mediator between heaven and earth, a guardian of sacred space. This changes the whole picture, because if Adam was assigned a specific task in a particular place, then what about everywhere else who lived beyond Eden's borders? And before you think this is speculation, consider the Bible's own clues. A few chapters later, after Cain kills Abel and is exiled from God's presence, he fears someone might kill him, saying, "Whoever finds me will kill me." But who is he referring to? According to the traditional story, only Adam, Eve, and Cain remain alive. Abel is dead. So who are these others Cain fears? Who might pursue him? It becomes even stranger. The text says Cain left the Lord's presence to live in Nod, where he married and fathered a son. Then astonishingly, Cain built a city. A city, why build a city if only a few people exist who would inhabit it? For centuries, theologians have argued that Adam and Eve had many children not named in the text, and Cain married one of his sisters. But consider how odd that explanation is. Would an ancient audience accept incest without explanation? Wouldn't the narrator clarify something so unusual? Or is the Bible hinting at something overlooked, that other people indeed existed, originating from the broader creation described in Genesis 1? Comment 1 if you believe there were other humans outside the garden from the beginning. Comment 2 if you think Cain's wife and city can be explained solely through Adam and Eve's descendants. Although Adam and Eve were specifically chosen for a covenant with God in Eden, this concept is not new. For centuries, Jewish and Christian scholars have considered that Adam may not have been the first biological human, but the first spiritual representative of humanity. Put simply, Adam wasn't necessarily the first Homo sapiens, but the first covenant partner, the first human called into a sacred bond with the divine, and the first granted moral responsibility and spiritual authority. This reading deepens the narrative rather than diminishing it, as it shows God did not merely create humanity and leave. Instead, God chose to engage intimately with humans, selecting representatives, making covenants, and beginning a redemptive journey involving all humanity. To grasp this fully, we must delve into the original language, because often the most significant insights arise not from translations, but from nuances in the Hebrew text. The Hebrew word Adam is intriguing. It can serve as a proper name referring to the specific man in Eden, a common noun meaning human being or mankind, or a collective noun representing all humanity. Confusion arises when we impose a single meaning on a word that carries several layers of meaning. In Genesis 1, Adam clearly refers to humanity as a whole male and female, with no garden individual or personal relationship specified. It's a broad declaration about human dignity and purpose. In Genesis 2, however, Adam becomes a distinct individual, the man formed from dust placed in Eden, assigned a mission. What emerges is this: Genesis 1 portrays humanity's creation as a species made in God's image, tasked with filling the earth and exercising dominion. Genesis 2 focuses on one man, Adam, appointed for a unique purpose in a specific place. This is not contradiction, but complementarity, like the difference between saying humans landed on the moon and Neil Armstrong stepping onto its surface. Both are true, but reflect different scopes and details. This perspective offers a new way to interpret Genesis's early chapters, not as a full biological account of human origins, but as a theological narrative about divine intent and human vocation. Adam is not merely the first man, but the first man with a mission, not the start of humanity biologically, but the start of God's redemptive plan for humanity. If this is true, if other humans existed beyond Eden, while Adam tended the garden, we must seriously question what was occurring in the broader world. Were civilizations, cultures, and alternate ways of life evolving alongside Eden's sacred story? More importantly, what does this imply for us now? How might it reshape our views of human nature, divine purpose, and our place in the cosmic narrative? These are questions we'll explore as we continue this forbidden history journey. The deeper we probe these ancient texts, the clearer it becomes that humanity's origins are far more intricate, mysterious, and profound than previously thought. In truth, we have only begun to scratch the surface. Numerous layers of meaning remain to be revealed, forgotten, ancient interpretations, archaeological finds reshaping early human history, genetic research offering fresh views on human origins. Most crucially, these discoveries carry theological consequences that could transform our self-understanding and our connection with the divine. If Adam was not the first human created, but the first called into covenant with God, his story gains deeper significance. It becomes a narrative of divine election, spiritual vocation, and the start of a heavenly-earthly relationship that ultimately culminates in Christ's arrival. Early Christians recognized this. The Apostle Paul referred to Jesus as the last Adam, directly linking the first man in Eden and the God-man on the cross. Both represented humanity faced temptation and made decisions shaping human destiny. Yet where the first Adam failed, the last Adam triumphed. Where the first Adam introduced death, the last Adam brought life. Where the first Adam was made from earth's dust, the last Adam rose from the dead to grant eternal life to believers. The significance of Adam's story lies not in providing a full scientific explanation of human evolution, but in revealing God's heart and humanity's purpose. It teaches that we were created for relationship called to stewardship and designed for communion with the divine. It also reminds us that even when we fail, fall, or hide in shame and fear, God seeks us asking, "Where are you?" not out of ignorance, but to help us remember our true identity. Continuing this exploration in the next series installment, we will delve further into the mysteries of humanity's origins. We'll review archaeological findings, investigate genetic studies, and reveal ancient interpretations hidden for centuries. We'll see how the story of the first Adam anticipates the last Adam, and how Eden's garden foreshadows the kingdom of heaven. But before that, we must tackle something biblical scholars have pondered for generations, a detail hidden in the Hebrew text. When reading Genesis in English, many essential nuances are lost, nuances that may be crucial to understanding not only who Adam was, but what was happening in the surrounding world. Let's revisit the moment just before Adam's creation in Genesis 2:5. The text states, "There was no man to work the ground." The Hebrew word for man here is not generic. It's Adam, the same term used as the name of the man God will create. This presents a puzzle if Adam doesn't exist, yet how can he be mentioned by name? Unless here Adam doesn't mean a specific person, but a type of human, a class, or a role. Hebrew is rich in wordplay and layered meanings. Adam stems from Adama, meaning ground or earth. So when God forms Adam from the Adama, it's a linguistic play, the earth man from the earth, one belonging to the soil because he was formed from it. What makes this even more fascinating is how early Genesis alternates between using Adam as a proper name and as a common noun. Sometimes Adam refers to the specific man in Eden, other times it signifies humanity broadly. This fluid use indicates the biblical authors grasped a truth often overlooked. Adam was simultaneously an individual and a symbol, a historical person and a representative figure, both a unique man and a pattern for humanity. This leads to one of the most compelling aspects of Adam's story. His role in Eden was not merely agricultural, but priestly. Recall the Hebrew words avad and shamar, meaning to work and to keep, to serve and to guard. These terms are not merely about gardening. They are temple language, the same used to describe priestly duties in the tabernacle and temple. Thus, Eden was more than a garden, it was a sanctuary, a sacred space where heaven met earth. Adam was not just a gardener, but a priest tasked with mediating between the divine and earthly realms. Consider the imagery, God walking in the garden, at day's cool, the tree of life, at the center rivers flowing to water the earth. This isn't merely a pleasant residence, but a cosmic temple with Adam as its inaugural priest. If Eden was a temple and Adam its priest, then what about the rest of the world? What happened beyond this sacred boundary? The text offers clues. Eden is located in the east, implying direction, place, and limits. Eden was a specific region within a broader geography, not the whole earth, but set apart for a distinct purpose. After Cain kills Abel and is exiled from God's presence, he goes to Nod east of Eden. This again points to geography and other lands beyond the sacred garden. What's truly remarkable is that upon arriving in Nod, Cain doesn't find wilderness, but a wife builds a city and establishes a civilization. This does not depict a lone wanderer, but someone joining an existing society. Traditional views try to explain this by proposing Adam and Eve had many unnamed children who spread out and founded communities before Cain's arrival. Consider the timeline here. According to the story, only a short time has elapsed since Adam and Eve were created. Even if they had more children right away, could those offspring have matured, dispersed, founded cities, and built cultures so quickly? Or might the Bible be suggesting something different altogether? That there might have already been people living in the land of Nod when Cain showed up, people who existed long before Adam was shaped from Eden's dust. This idea grows more fascinating when we examine other enigmatic mentions throughout Genesis' early chapters. These references hint at a broader, more intricate world beyond the straightforward Adam and Eve story. For example, Genesis 6 tells the curious tale of the sons of God and the daughters of men. It states that the sons of God found the daughters of men attractive and took wives from them. Their children were the Nephilim, described as mighty renowned men of ancient times. If all humans descended solely from Adam and Eve, who then are these sons of God and daughters of men? Why differentiate them? Why not simply call them all Adam's descendants or children of the original couple? The Hebrew terms imply two separate groups, two distinct classes of beings. This difference indicates a complexity in early human history that surpasses the usual straightforward narrative we are commonly given. Yet the most fascinating hint may come from an unexpected place: the genealogies themselves. Following the family lines in Genesis reveals something notable. The descendants of Cain and those of Seth, Adam's third son, appear to form parallel civilizations. Both groups create similar advancements: metallurgy, music, farming, animal husbandry. It's as if two cultural currents ran alongside each other, sometimes crossing but remaining essentially distinct. Here's the key point. In the genealogy of Seth's line, the text notes something striking. Genesis 5:3 says Adam had a son in his own likeness, in his image, and named him Seth. Why highlight this for Seth but not for Cain or Abel? Unless Seth was somehow different, marked to continue a special lineage, a unique purpose, a distinct connection with the divine. This phrasing of likeness and image mirrors the creation description in Genesis 1, where God created humanity in his image. Now, this same terminology applies particularly to Adam and Seth. Could Seth be the chosen heir to the covenant line, the spiritual legacy given to Adam? If that's true, what does it reveal about Adam's role in early human history's complexity? Such questions open the possibility that the Bible isn't offering a full anthropological explanation of human origins, but a theological story about divine intention and spiritual vocation. Put differently, Genesis may not address how humans evolved biologically, but how God initiated his redemptive relationship with humanity. This perspective shift transforms the meaning of Adam's importance. It is not biological, but spiritual. He matters not as the first Homo sapiens, but as the first human called into covenant with God. This view aligns closely with modern scientific findings on human origins. Genetics indicate humanity arose from large populations rather than just one pair. Archaeology shows complex, varied early societies. Anthropology uncovers advanced cultures across many areas. None of this conflicts with the Bible if Genesis is read as a different kind of narrative. It is a story about God selecting specific people for specific roles, about the start of salvation history rather than natural history. This leads to a profound insight. If Adam was chosen for covenant, called to be a priest in a holy place, a mediator between heaven and earth, then his failure was not merely personal, but cosmic in scope. When Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, they did more than break a rule, they broke a relationship. They didn't only disobey a command, they forsook their divine vocation. Their sin was more than moral failure. It was a failure in their role as humanity's representatives before God. This explains why Paul, centuries later, wrote that sin entered the world through one man, not because Adam was the only person alive, but because he was humanity's covenant head, God's designated representative to the human race. This interpretation enlarges Adam's story rather than diminishes it. It means that from the start, God was unfolding a redemption plan, culminating in a new representative, a new covenant head, the last Adam, Jesus Christ. Before examining that connection, we must delve further into the events following the fall. The story of humanity's rebellion in Eden is only the start of a much broader narrative, one spanning centuries, cultures, and continents. This narrative exposes humanity's enduring yearning for the sacred despite our broken state. It might also explain why even today, in our modern scientific and technological era, we remain troubled by questions of meaning, purpose, and transcendence. Questions biology alone cannot resolve, requiring us to confront the deeper enigmas of human existence. The reality is that we continue living in Eden's aftermath. We still face the effects of that initial rebellion. We continue seeking a path back to the garden, back to the sacred, back to the lost relationship with the divine. Perhaps this explains why these ancient stories remain relevant, not as scientific accounts of evolution, but because they disclose profound truths about the human condition, truths that transcend eras, cultures, and scientific frameworks. Humans were created for more than just survival. We were made for connection, intended for purpose, summoned towards something beyond ourselves. Adam's story fundamentally embodies this calling, and his failure illustrates our need for redemption, which, as we will see, was always included in the divine plan. The implications of this discovery are deeper than commonly understood. If Adam was not the first human ever created, but the first called into covenant with God, then our understanding of early human history shifts dramatically. This suggests a world already inhabited and functioning, with cultures and civilizations developing while the sacred events in Eden took place. This raises intriguing questions. Who were these other people? How did they live? What were their beliefs? Did they know about the garden sanctuary to the east? The Bible offers tantalizing hints, but never the full story. Like peering through a keyhole into a vast chamber, glimpsing fragments of a much bigger narrative. Reflect on Cain's descendants after his exile from God's presence. Scripture notes that his lineage produced significant innovations. Jabal is called the father of those dwelling in tents and herding livestock. Jubal is credited as the father of musicians playing harp and flute. Tubal-Cain as a craftsman forging bronze and iron tools. These were not primitive cave dwellers, but advanced people developing technology, arts, and trade, laying the groundwork for civilization. What's striking is how the text treats these innovations matter-of-factly, implying they were natural and expected elements of the wider human saga unfolding across the ancient world. This suggests that creativity, ingenuity, and cultural growth were not confined to Adam and Eve's descendants, but were universal human traits, part of what it meant to bear God's image, whether inside or outside the covenant community. This leads to a vital understanding: the divine image was not restricted to Adam's lineage. Genesis 1 states all humanity was created in God's image. Every person bore that divine spark capable of creativity, relationships, moral judgment, and spiritual awareness. Adam's distinctiveness was not in being the sole bearer of God's image, but in being uniquely called into direct covenant, a priest mediator, a link between divine and human worlds. This difference grows even more important considering the fall. When Adam and Eve rebelled and were banished from Eden, they remained human. They did not lose their dignity or ability to relate to God, but they lost their unique role as covenant mediators. The holy place was closed, direct communion ended, and the priestly function was relinquished. Yet note what the text omits: it never says God wholly abandoned humanity, nor that relationship with him was lost forever. Instead, it offers a promise, a plan, a hope for restoration. Even as judgment is declared, God foretells a future struggle between the serpent's descendants and the woman's offspring, one who will crush the serpent's head despite being wounded. This is redemption's first hint. The Eden story is not the end, but the start; not tragedy's conclusion, but a prelude to something greater. Over the generations that followed, this theme reappears repeatedly. God calls individuals into covenant relationships: Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, each selected not for their perfection, but for their willingness to trust, follow, and act as humanity's representatives before God's throne. The pattern set by Adam continued through history, God working through specific people for universal aims, choosing a few to bless the many, forging covenants with individuals to benefit all humanity. There is another element to consider, taking the discussion into even more enigmatic territory. Across ancient civilizations and cultures, we find strikingly similar narratives: stories of a golden age, a perfect start, a fall from paradise, and a rift between heaven and earth. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, divine beings descending from heaven to found civilization. The Greeks told of a golden age when gods and humans coexisted peacefully. The Egyptians described eras when gods directly governed humans. Hindu traditions recount cycles of creation and destruction, times when divine beings walked among mortals. These tales are not mere myths, but echoes, memories, fragments of real events preserved in humanity's collective memory and transmitted orally over millennia. Remarkably, despite their origins in diverse cultures and eras, they share key features: a perfect beginning, divine beings engaging with humans, a disastrous fall or separation, and the loss of direct access to the divine realm. Could these stories all be recalling a single event or era in human history when heaven and earth intersected in ways we can hardly conceive today? The biblical Eden account might not be unique as the sole true story, but as the most thorough and precise preservation of a memory common to all early humans. Consider this: if Adam's role in Eden was truly cosmic, with a priesthood mediating between heaven and earth for all people, then his fall impacted everyone universally. The divide between divine and human realms would not be confined to his lineage, but would be a global catastrophe. This may explain why cultures worldwide recall a time when gods were near the divine realm, more reachable, and humanity existed in a harmony later lost. The expulsion from Eden was not merely Adam and Eve's personal misfortune. It marked the point when all humanity lost direct connection with the divine presence, when the cosmic temple shut and the bridge linking heaven and earth was broken. Yet the story shifts again. Since the fall had universal effects, redemption must be equally universal. This is precisely what unfolds in the biblical narrative. God's plan wasn't merely to renew Adam's descendants, but to restore all humanity's lost relationship with him. This explains the importance of the promise to Abraham: "In you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." Not only select families or the covenant people, but all families, nations, and peoples. The redemption plan was intended to be as expansive as the fall, as universal as creation itself, and as inclusive as the divine image given to every human from the start. This leads to one of Scripture's deepest revelations. Jesus came not only as Savior of Christians or Jews, but as the second Adam, the last Adam, who would succeed where the first Adam fell. Paul explicitly connects this in Romans, stating that sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, spreading to all because all sinned. Likewise, through one man's obedience, righteousness becomes accessible to all. This goes beyond personal salvation to cosmic restoration, the mending of the rift between heaven and earth, reopening access to the divine presence, and restoring humanity's priestly role. Jesus did more than forgive sins. He came to renew the relationship, rebuild the bridge, reopen the temple, and enable all humanity to walk with God once again in the cool of the day. This explains why gospel writers meticulously trace Jesus' genealogy back to Adam, why Paul calls him the last Adam, and why Revelation depicts the New Jerusalem as where God dwells eternally with humanity. The Eden story concludes in Christ. The cosmic temple closed at the fall is reopened, the lost priestly role restored, and the broken relationship healed. What makes this even more remarkable is that this restoration is not confined to the original covenant people. It extends to everyone, every nation, family, and people on earth, to descendants of Cain and Seth alike, to those outside the garden, and those whose ancestors lived inside it. The divine image was never exclusive to one family line. The ability to relate to God has always been universal. What was required was not the invention of something new, but the restoration of what was lost. This forbidden history we've uncovered is not merely academically intriguing, but deeply personal. It means that no matter your background, ancestry, or culture, you belong to this story. You bear the divine image, were made for relationship with God, and have a calling beyond biology linked to the cosmic purpose set before the world's foundation. Adam's story is not just ancient history, it's your story. His calling is yours, his failure yours, and more importantly, his redemption is yours. Whether your ancestors were inside or outside the garden, part of the covenant or among the nations, whether they remembered or forgot the old tales, you are invited into the very relationship offered to Adam at the start. You are summoned to be a priest mediator, a bridge linking heaven and earth, not by genetic heritage, but by spiritual destiny. The garden may be gone, but the invitation endures. Although the temple might be shut, access is being renewed. Even if the relationship is fractured, healing remains possible. This represents the core significance of the forbidden history we've examined, not merely to satisfy our interest in the past, but to shed light on our purpose today. It's not only about knowing our origins, but also about understanding our future. The narrative that started with the first Adam reaches its fulfillment in the last Adam. This fulfillment is not only on a cosmic scale, but also deeply personal. It is not only universal, but also close and intimate. It is not merely historical, but eternal. The invitation originally made in Eden remains open today. The call first directed to Adam continues to be accessible to anyone willing to accept it. The bond lost in the garden is being renewed through the cross. This, possibly more than any archaeological fine genetic study or linguistic discovery, is the deepest revelation. This ancient story is not solely about past people, but about us. It concerns not just the past, but the present. Not only the beginning, but the future that is still developing. The forbidden history about humanity's origins reveals itself as the official story of humanity's destiny. Regardless of who you are, your background, or your life story so far, you are invited to join this narrative. The real question isn't if you meet certain qualifications related to ancestry or heritage, but if you are willing to embrace the calling. Whether you are prepared to assume the role intended for you, whether you will claim your place in the cosmic story that began in a garden and will end in a city where God and humans live together eternally. To fully understand the enormity of this subject, we must explore areas that will question all your previous assumptions about ancient civilizations. Across the world, hidden under layers of sand and centuries, lie archaeological finds that seem to reflect the stories we've been discussing. In the birthplace of civilization, where the Tigris and Euphrates meet, archaeologists have discovered something remarkable: the ruins of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dating back more than 11,000 years. Enormous stone pillars are set in precise circles, adorned with detailed carvings of animals and symbols. These structures were not created by primitive hunter-gatherers, merely trying to survive in caves. Instead, they represent advanced architecture, intricate engineering, and sacred geometry. What makes this even more astonishing is that Göbekli Tepe was purposely buried, not by natural causes or aging, but intentionally covered with huge amounts of earth and stone, as if to conceal it, erase it from history, and prevent it from being discovered. Why would an advanced society hide their greatest accomplishment? What were they attempting to hide? Or more importantly, what were they aiming to protect? These structures date to the period when many experts think agriculture was just beginning, marking humanity's shift from nomadic hunting to settled farming. However, Göbekli Tepe indicates a far more complex reality during this critical phase of human history. This wasn't a time of simple trial and error by primitive peoples learning to farm. Instead, these were advanced creations by a civilization already skilled in astronomy, engineering, and sacred building practices. A society with both the expertise and social structure necessary to execute large-scale construction projects. They are not unique. Around the ancient world, similar enigmas appear. The precisely cut stones of Pumapunku in Bolivia fit so tightly that no razor blade can fit between them. In Lebanon, the colossal megaliths of Baalbek, some exceeding 800 tons, were transported and arranged using methods we still cannot reproduce. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid exemplifies mathematical and engineering expertise that appears fully developed in the archaeological record. There is no evidence of trial and error or slow progress, just an immediate advanced mastery of techniques that would not be uncovered again for millennia. These are not merely remarkable structures. They reveal lost knowledge, forgotten wisdom, and abilities that surpass what we would anticipate from the civilizations credited with their construction. Perhaps most fascinating is that many of these sites share features such as astronomical alignments, sacred geometry, and symbolic motifs found across cultures separated by great distances with no known contact. It suggests there may once have been a unified comprehension of cosmic laws, a shared knowledge of constructing in tune with celestial arrangements, and a common symbolic language that crossed geographic borders. Might these be remains of a world existing before the great separation, proof of advanced civilizations, thriving when heaven and earth were more closely linked, fragments of knowledge kept alive by those who recalled ancient traditions? Sumerian tablets mention the Anunnaki, divine beings descending from heaven to found civilization on earth. They recount the teaching of arts and sciences, the start of agriculture, and metalworking, and the creation of the first cities. These are not myths or legends, but historical documents with precise descriptions of actual events, people, and locations. The Sumerians even give exact dates, family lines, and locations. Remarkably, these records closely match biblical stories, despite arising from very different cultures. Both speak of a period when divine beings had direct contact with humans. Both describe civilizations founding through divine teaching. Both suggest a major rupture that altered the connection between heaven and earth. The Sumerian king list documents rulers with extraordinarily long reigns before a great flood transformed everything. Biblical genealogies tell of patriarchs living centuries before lifespans sharply decreased after Noah's era. These parallel stories from separate sources indicate they reflect true historical memories, not mere folklore or myths, but preserved accounts of real events so impactful that every culture that lived through them recorded them. The story becomes even more intriguing as genetic research uncovers patterns matching these ancient records, prompting us to rethink what we believed about human origins. Mitochondrial DNA studies trace all modern humans to a shared female ancestor called mitochondrial Eve, who lived in Africa between roughly 150,000 and 200,000 years ago. I-chromosome studies identify a common male ancestor who lived approximately 60,000 to 300,000 years ago. A crucial detail often missed is that these two ancestors did not live simultaneously. They were not a couple nor the very first humans, but rather the most recent shared ancestors on distinct genetic lines. This implies early human populations were diverse and complex, consisting of multiple lineages, groups, and branches evolving in parallel instead of descending from just one pair. This fits strikingly with the biblical narrative we've discussed. Genesis 1 presents humanity's general creation, while Genesis 2 highlights the unique calling of one individual within that wider group. Adam and Eve may not have been the biological ancestors of all humans, but were covenant representatives, chosen mediators, and appointed priests in the cosmic temple. Their role was spiritual, not genetic, theological, not biological. Their story centers on the start of God's redemptive relationship with humanity, not human origins. This perspective clarifies long-standing biblical puzzles: why Cain feared others when supposedly only his family existed, why he found a wife in the land of Nod, and why he built a city despite a supposedly small population. The answer is there were other people because humanity was already widespread. Adam's family was not the only group. They were chosen representatives within a much larger human population. This leads to a profound implication: if Adam's role was representative, not exclusive, and his calling spiritual rather than just biological, then his failure impacted all humanity, not only his direct descendants. When the cosmic temple was closed, the connection between heaven and earth was severed, and the priestly mediation was lost. It caused a spiritual crisis affecting every human everywhere. Not due to genetic relation to Adam, but because all humans belong to the family Adam represented. Consider this analogy: when a president's decision leads to war, it affects all citizens, no matter if they voted for him or even knew of him. His representative position means his actions have broad consequences beyond his immediate sphere. Similarly, Adam's representative role meant his spiritual rebellion had cosmic effects impacting all humanity: separation from divine presence, loss of direct access to the sacred realm, and the rupture of the communion meant to link heaven and earth. This explains why many cultures worldwide recall a lost golden age, a period when gods and humans coexisted in closer harmony. A paradise lost due to a significant catastrophe or rebellion. These memories are not merely wishful or nostalgic, but preserve recollections of real events. A relationship meant to be universal was broken, a door intended to stay open was shut, and a conversation meant to last forever was silenced. However, since the fall affected all, universally redemption must also be universal. This brings us to the climax of the story we've been following. The promise made in Eden about the woman's offspring who would crush the serpent's head was not about a single person alone. It concerned restoring the cosmic order, reopening the heavenly temple, and rebuilding the connection between the divine and human worlds. When Jesus proclaimed himself as the way, the truth, and the life, he offered more than personal salvation. He declared the restoration of the cosmic priesthood, the return of mediation between God and humanity, and the chance for all people to access the divine presence once again. The genealogies linking him to Adam symbolize not just biological descent, but spiritual succession, the transfer of the covenant call from the first Adam to the last Adam, fulfilling a role started in Eden and completed on Calvary. What makes this even more remarkable is that Christ's restoration is not confined to the original covenant community. It extends to all families, nations, and peoples bearing the divine image, regardless of ancestry or heritage. The inclusion of Gentiles, which astonished the early church, was never an afterthought or backup plan. It was part of the original intention because the divine image was never exclusive to one family line. The call to relate with God was always universal. What took place in Eden impacted all people, and what happened at Calvary is available to everyone. The story starting with the first Adam concludes with the last Adam embracing all humanity. This explains why archaeological finds worldwide suggest common origins, genetic studies show shared ancestry, ancient texts across cultures retain similar memories, and why human beings everywhere long for transcendence, meaning, and divine connection. We are all part of one story, bear the same image, share the same call, endure the same separation, and receive the same offer of restoration. The forbidden history we've studied goes beyond ancient events in faraway places. It concerns the cosmic drama involving every human being. It is the universal story that gives meaning to each life and the shared destiny linking every person who has lived. Whether your ancestors were inside or outside the garden, remembered or forgot the ancient stories part of the covenant, or scattered among nations, you belong to this story. You bear the divine image placed on humanity from the start. You live with the separation caused by cosmic rebellion and carry the deep longing for restoration found in every human heart. You are invited to return not to a physical garden, but to a spiritual relationship. Not to a temple of stone, but to the presence of the living God. Not to a lost paradise, but to an everlasting kingdom where the original purpose of creation is finally realized. The story starting with Adam does not end with him. It unfolds through every generation, culture, and people until the day heaven and earth are completely reunited and the cosmic temple is restored eternally. At that ultimate restoration, the forbidden history we've studied will be fully disclosed. Mysteries that have baffled scholars for centuries will be solved. The profound questions troubling human minds will find answers. Yet until that time, we are left with fragments, clues, and echoes of a grander truth beyond our present comprehension, evidence pointing toward realities scarcely imaginable. Archaeological finds keep growing. Genetic studies reveal new patterns. Ancient writings provide new insights. Each discovery makes the overall picture more complex, mysterious, and astonishing. Because what we're uncovering isn't merely past facts, it's truths about the present, about our identity, purpose, and future. Humanity's forbidden history is still unfolding, and you are part of this ongoing story right now. Your decisions matter, your destiny is important, and your part in the cosmic story carries eternal significance. The issue isn't if you qualify to join this story, you already belong by being human. The question is if you will accept your role, embrace the calling, and step into the destiny prepared for you before the world's foundation. Though the garden is lost, the invitation stands. Though the temple is closed, access is being restored. Though separation is real, reconciliation remains possible. The story begun in Eden goes on today with its conclusion yet to be written. What we're about to explore next will challenge not only your view of ancient history, but your entire perspective on existence. Hidden within the Hebrew language are clues often unnoticed, linguistic traces revealing truths so deep they have been missed for thousands of years. Let's return to a key moment in Genesis 2:5. The text says, "No man was there to work the ground." Yet in the original Hebrew, the word translated as work is avad, a term rich with meanings that change how we understand this passage. Avad doesn't simply mean to till or farm. It is also used in the Hebrew Bible to describe worship service to God and priestly duties in the temple. When Levites served in the tabernacle, they were performing avad. When people worshiped God, they were engaged in avad, which was not simply farming, but a holy service. The second term, shama, often rendered as keep or tend, carries deep significance as well. It means to guard, protect, and carefully watch over something. This too is language rooted in the temple context. Priests were instructed to shamar the sanctuary to defend it from defilement and guard it against anything that could tarnish its sacredness. Therefore, when God assigns Adam to Avod and Shamar, the Garden of Eden, he is not designating a gardener, but commissioning a priest. Eden was not merely a picturesque garden. It was a cosmic temple, a sacred site where heaven and earth met with Adam, serving as its initial priest. This perspective shifts everything because if Eden was a temple, then what occurred outside its borders gains new meaning. Temples exist within broader settings, distinguished from ordinary life precisely because they are sacred places where God's presence is uniquely manifested. Consider the temple in Jerusalem, the holiest spot in Israel. Yet Israel lived among other nations, peoples, and cultures. The temple's importance was not lessened by the presence of Egypt, Babylon, or Greece. Rather, its distinctiveness was emphasized by the contrast. Likewise, Eden's cosmic temple role doesn't imply it was the only inhabited area on earth. Its mediating function between heaven and earth implies the existence of other realms, peoples, and concurrent stories. This leads us to a fascinating feature of the Hebrew text, the use of the word Adam. In Hebrew, Adam can refer to a single person or to humanity as a whole. The text smoothly shifts between these meanings, sometimes indicating the specific man in the garden, other times referencing all humankind. This linguistic flexibility reveals that the biblical writers grasped something often overlooked: Adam as both specific and universal, an individual and a representative figure, a historical person, and a symbolic archetype. Genesis 1's description of God creating Adam in his image, male and female, clearly refers to humanity generally, while chapter 2's account of forming Adam from dust centers on a particular individual. Yet the connection between these usages implies a deeper truth that the individual Adam was appointed to symbolize the universal human condition. This is why Paul could later describe Adam as a type or pattern of the one to come. Adam's role was not merely personal, but also representative. His choices influenced not only his own fate, but that of all humanity. His mission was not only individual, but cosmic in scope. This representative role clarifies a long-standing puzzle. How could Adam's sin affect those not yet born? How could his disobedience impact people uninvolved in his decision? The explanation lies in understanding representation itself. Just as a king's decisions affect his kingdom, a president's war declaration impacts all citizens, and a priest's sacrifice serves the entire community. Representatives act not for themselves alone, but for those they symbolize. Adam's spiritual rebellion thus had consequences, reaching far beyond his personal relationship with God. The cosmic temple was defiled, the bridge between heaven and earth broken, and the mediatory role compromised. Yet the Hebrew language reveals something even more profound. The term used for Adam's formation from dust is yatsar, which means to form or shape like a potter molding clay. This word conveys intimate artistry, careful craftsmanship, and intentional design. The same term appears later in Scripture to describe God's formation of Israel, not their physical creation, but their spiritual formation as a chosen people. It is also applied to prophets, formed in the womb individuals, selected before birth for specific missions. This consistent pattern shows that Yatsar refers to the intentional formation of persons or groups for special roles within God's plan. It is about spiritual calling and divine election, not biological origin. This perspective transforms Adam's formation. He was not made because no humans existed, but because God required someone for a particular role, someone to serve as priest in the cosmic temple, to mediate between divine and human realms, and to represent humanity before God's throne. This leads us to another profound insight within the Hebrew text, the meaning of Eden's location. The text states that God planted a garden in Eden situated in the east. Yet the word Eden itself carries a meaning often lost in translation. Derived from a root meaning delight or pleasure, Eden also suggests luxury, refinement, and abundance. It is more than a geographic spot. It describes a spiritual condition, a state marked by perfect harmony between heaven and earth. When the text says God planted a garden in Eden, it is not merely giving a geographical reference, but portraying the spiritual reality of this sacred place, a location where divine delight was experienced, the joys of fellowship with God fully enjoyed, and the abundance of heaven tasted on earth. When Adam and Eve were expelled, they did not simply lose a beautiful home, but were severed from the spiritual reality that Eden embodied. Delight vanished, pleasure was forfeited, and abundance withdrawn. Importantly, the text does not state that Eden itself was destroyed. Rather, access was denied. Cherubim with flaming swords were stationed at the entrance to guard the way to the tree of life. The spiritual reality endured, but the path was closed. This implies that Eden still exists in some form, awaiting the day access will be restored, the cosmic temple reopened, and the bridge between heaven and earth rebuilt. Here, the Hebrew language guides us toward the story's ultimate resolution. Throughout the Old Testament, promises of restoration employ the same language found in the Eden account. Prophets describe a future time when God will plant his people again in their land, form them for his glory, and they will serve and guard his sanctuary with flawless obedience. The divine presence will dwell among them as intimately as in the garden before. These are not mere poetic images, but assurances of real restoration, the recreation of the original conditions lost through Adam's rebellion, and the reopening of the cosmic temple closed by human disobedience. Furthermore, the prophets suggest something even more extraordinary. This restoration will not be confined to one people or place, but will include all nations, peoples, and families on earth. Isaiah foresees a time when all nations will stream to the Lord's mountain, the earth will be filled with God's knowledge as the seas cover the waters, and the wolf will lie down with the lamb under the guidance of a child. This is not mere political peace or social harmony, but cosmic restoration, the worldwide return to the Edenic order, and the transformation of the entire earth into what Eden was always intended to be. Central to this restoration is a figure who embodies all that Adam was meant to be, but did not fulfill: a perfect priest of the cosmic temple, an impeccable mediator between heaven and earth, and a flawless representative of humanity. The Hebrew prophets portray this figure with language echoing Adam's story, a branch growing from Jesse's root formed in the womb for divine service. One who delights in revering the Lord restores the years lost to locusts and brings back Eden's joy. Most importantly, he succeeds where Adam failed. Where the first man corrupted the cosmic temple, this figure purifies it. Where Adam's disobedience barred access to the tree of life, this one's obedience reopens it. Where humanity's initial representative fell, the ultimate representative stands. The Hebrew scriptures build expectation for this figure over centuries of prophecy, not as a substitute for Adam, but as his ultimate fulfillment. Not a different kind of human, but the human Adam was intended to be. When this figure finally arrived as Jesus entered history, the connections to Adam were clear. His lineage traced back to Adam. His temptation in the wilderness mirrored Adam's trial in the garden, and his obedience unto death reversed Adam's disobedience unto death. Crucially, his role as mediator between God and humanity completed the priestly calling Adam had forsaken. Through his perfect life, sacrificial death, and triumphant resurrection, he reopened the path to the cosmic temple, restored access to the tree of life, and made it possible for humanity to walk again with God in the cool of the day. The Hebrew language had long been pointing toward this resolution. Every use of avad and shama in temple worship, every depiction of priestly mediation, every promise of restoration and return, all foreshadowed the moment when the last Adam would finish what the first Adam started. What makes this even more extraordinary is that the restoration through Christ is not limited to those within the original covenant community, but extends to all who bear the divine image, regardless of lineage. Genesis 1 clearly states that all humanity is made in God's image. Everyone carries that divine spark and is capable of the relationship Eden symbolized. What was lost in Adam's rebellion was not the ability to relate to God, but access to the cosmic temple where that relationship could be fully experienced. The pathway was blocked, not the destination. The door was shut, not the house. Christ's work did not create something entirely new, but restored what was lost, reopening the path, removing the barriers, and restoring access to God's presence. This explains why the New Testament presents salvation not as escaping the world, but transforming it, not as departing earth for heaven, but bringing heaven to earth, not as destroying creation, but liberating and renewing it. Revelation offers the ultimate vision of this restoration, a new heaven and new earth, where God lives with humanity forever, a city descending from heaven to earth, rather than humans ascending to heaven. It depicts a cosmic temple encompassing all who choose to enter. In this vision, the tree of life stands in the city center, its leaves healing the nations, and the river of life flows from God's throne through the city streets. There is no longer any divide between sacred and secular heaven, and earth divine and human realms. This was Eden's original intent, not a private garden for a special couple, but a cosmic reality embracing all creation. Not an exclusive sanctuary for a select few, but a universal temple where all bearing God's image can worship and serve eternally. From the start, the Hebrew language encoded this vision through words like Ovid and Shamar, through the flexible meaning of Adam, the promises of restoration and return, and the anticipation of one who would succeed where the first man failed. This is why the forbidden history we have examined is so important. It is not only about the past, but about recognizing the future. God has always intended the destiny planned before the world's foundation, a restoration embracing not only individuals, but all creation. Whether your ancestors were inside or outside the garden part of the covenant, or among the dispersed nations, whether they remembered ancient stories or forgot them, you belong to this cosmic story. You bear the divine image enabling relationship with God. You feel the separation caused by cosmic rebellion and the longing for restoration echoing in every human heart. You are invited to enter the cosmic temple reopened through the last Adam's perfect obedience. This invitation is not based on ancestry or culture, but on your spiritual identity as God's image bearer. It is extended not because of your parents, but because of who you were made to be. The cosmic temple is open, the path cleared, and the tree of life is once again accessible to all who come with faith and humility. The restoration begun in a garden will culminate in a city where God and humanity dwell together forever. Grasping this invitation demands acknowledging something that might challenge all you've been taught about human nature and divine purpose. The implications go beyond religious doctrines or theological ideas, striking at the heart of what it means to be human in a universe created for relationship, meaning, and eternal significance. Archaeological findings continue to grow, revealing advanced ancient civilizations, seemingly aware of cosmic principles we are only now beginning to understand. Genetic studies show patterns of human diversity that align closely with the biblical depiction of multiple early populations. Linguistic research uncovers layered meanings that reshape how we comprehend ancient texts. Most importantly, the deep existential questions haunting every person. Why do we feel homesick for a place we've never known? Why do we seek meaning beyond survival? Why do we sense we were made for something greater than this world are answered by this cosmic story? We carry Eden's memory in our spiritual DNA, recalling however faintly the intended relationship with the divine. We yearn for the restoration of the cosmic order lost so long ago, and hunger for a return to the garden, our true home. This is neither mere wishful thinking nor religious fantasy. It represents the fundamental truth about human existence. Though we are exiles from Eden, we are also heirs of restoration. We carry the image of God in a fallen state, yet remain candidates for redemption. Though we represent humanity in brokenness, we are invited participants in an ongoing cosmic renewal. The narrative that started with the first Adam continues with every decision we make, every relationship we nurture, and every act of service we undertake. We are still composing this cosmic story and grappling with the meaning of the restoration achieved on Calvary. Eventually, when the story reaches its climactic end, when the new heaven and earth are fully revealed, and the cosmic temple encompasses all redeemed creation, the forbidden history we have been examining will be fully understood. Mysteries that once confused us will be unveiled, lingering questions answered, and deep longings fulfilled. We will come to grasp, perhaps for the first time, what it truly means to be human in a universe created for eternal communion with the divine. Until that time comes, we exist in the space between Eden and the New Jerusalem, between the lost garden and the promised city, between the failure of the first Adam and the victory of the last Adam, between the cosmic rebellion that caused separation and the restoration that offers eternal fellowship. We dwell in the tension of the already and the not yet, already redeemed, but not yet fully transformed. Already invited into the cosmic temple, but not yet witnessing it in its fullness. Already involved in restoration, but not yet experiencing its completion. Yet we live with hope and purpose, aware that our personal stories form part of a grand narrative stretching from creation to consummation. We trust that the same God who walked with Adam in the garden still walks with us today, guiding us toward the relationship we were created to share. The forbidden history of humanity's origins also serves as the authorized biography of humanity's future. Within that future, every question will be answered, every yearning fulfilled, and every soul will find its true home. Yet as we delve deeper into these mysteries, we encounter something profoundly unsettling. Ancient texts contain references to beings that defy simple classification as human or divine entities that traverse between worlds, connecting realms in ways difficult for modern understanding. The book of Genesis introduces the Nephilim, described as the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men. These were no ordinary humans. The text refers to them as mighty men of renowned warriors, whose very existence seemed to blur the line between heaven and earth. If humanity descended solely from Adam, then who were these sons of God, and why does the text differentiate them from the daughters of men? This is not mere poetic imagery or mythological storytelling. It is a historical account indicating something extraordinary in the ancient world. The Hebrew phrase Ben Elohim generally refers to divine beings, members of God's heavenly council. These were not humans elevated spiritually, but beings from the divine realm who crossed into the physical world and interacted with humanity in unprecedented ways. Consider the implications. If divine beings married human women and had children, then the ancient world was far more complex than traditionally taught. The boundary between spiritual and physical realms was more permeable, and interactions across different orders of existence were frequent. Moreover, this was not unique to one culture. Numerous civilizations worldwide recall divine beings descending from heaven to engage with humans. Sumerian tablets mention the Anunnaki said to have come down from heaven to earth. Greek myths speak of titans and gods mingling with mortals. Hindu traditions tell of avatars and divine incarnations. These independent parallel accounts suggest genuine historical events rather than shared myths. Something significant occurred in the ancient world that all civilizations witnessed and remembered, albeit through different cultural lenses. However, the story darkens at this point. The arrival of these divine beings was not wholly benevolent. Biblical texts indicate their presence caused extreme corruption. Violence spread across the earth, and human hearts grew continually evil. The very foundation of creation appeared to be unraveling. For this reason, God chose to cleanse the earth with a flood, not simply because humans sinned in usual ways, but because the cosmic order itself had been distorted. Boundaries between realms were broken, and the natural course of human development was disrupted by forces introducing knowledge and powers humanity was unprepared to manage. Noah's preservation involved more than rescuing righteous individuals from the wicked. It aimed to protect a pure human lineage from both genetic and spiritual contamination. The text describes Noah as perfect in his generations, a phrase implying genetic purity rather than solely moral uprightness. The flood was not just divine punishment for human sinfulness. It was a cosmic reset, a restoration to the original design before supernatural interference distorted the natural order. Yet the flood did not erase the memory of these events. It did not remove the knowledge that had been imparted or fully eliminate the influence of beings descended from the divine realm. That is why we find remnants of advanced knowledge embedded in ancient civilizations, mathematical concepts not rediscovered for thousands of years, astronomical calculations of remarkable accuracy and engineering feats surpassing what Bronze Age cultures should have been capable of. The megalithic structures mentioned earlier represent more than architectural feats. They demonstrate knowledge preserved from before the flood. Techniques and insights were handed down across generations, even after the original teachers had disappeared. For instance, consider the Great Pyramid's remarkable precision, aligned with true north to within 1/360th of a degree, mathematically encoding constants like pi and the golden ratio, and featuring internal chambers designed with acoustic principles only recently understood. These achievements were not the result of trial and error or gradual evolution, but rather the use of advanced knowledge that appears fully developed in the archaeological record, knowledge seemingly inherited rather than newly created. This phenomenon is not limited to Egypt. The stone circles of Göbekli Tepe reveal mastery of complex geometry and astronomical cycles. The enormous stones of Baalbek display engineering expertise that challenges our views of ancient technological abilities. The precisely cut blocks of Puma Punku show metallurgical and stonemasonry skills that appear anachronistic for their assigned historical period. These are not mere anomalies or coincidences, but evidence of a lost golden age when knowledge passed more freely between realms and divine beings shared wisdom that profoundly transformed human civilization. However, with such knowledge also came corruption. The very forces that enabled remarkable accomplishments also brought distortions threatening humanity's core. Power without wisdom, knowledge without ethical boundaries, ability without spiritual maturity, this pattern recurs throughout history. Each major advance in human knowledge carries both benefits and dangers. Every technological breakthrough opens opportunities for both creation and destruction. Every increase in capability poses ethical questions regarding its use. The atomic age produced both clean energy and nuclear weapons. The digital era has delivered global communication alongside unprecedented surveillance. Genetic engineering offers healing but also potential new corruptions. We continue to live with the fallout from the original introduction of forbidden knowledge, still wrestling with fundamental questions about how divine wisdom relates to human ambition and how to manage powers that outpace our moral growth. This leads us to one of the most profound realizations from our study. The story of humanity's origin is not simply ancient history. It is a recurring pattern echoing across every generation and culture. The temptation to seize divine knowledge apart from a relationship with the divine, the desire to become godlike without submitting to God, and the readiness to violate protective boundaries. These are not merely ancient challenges. They represent the fundamental struggles of human existence across all ages. This is why the Eden narrative remains deeply relevant, not because it provides scientific information on human evolution, but because it uncovers spiritual forces that persistently influence human history. The very choices faced by Adam confront us still. The temptations that triggered the original rebellion continue to provoke defiance today. The serpent's question in the garden, "Has God really said?" reverberates through every generation, casting doubt on divine authority, implying we can decide good and evil on our own, and promising that disobedience will elevate us to godlike status. Each technological advance, scientific discovery, and growth in human capability presents the same essential decision. Will we apply this knowledge in submission to divine wisdom, or will we assert our independence and chart our own path? The ancient world encountered this dilemma when divine beings provided forbidden knowledge. Today, we confront the same choice as we approach artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and abilities once unimaginable to earlier generations. This pattern remains consistent throughout history, and culture's power corrupts when separated from wisdom. Knowledge harms when disconnected from love. Ability becomes disastrous without moral discipline. Yet another pattern weaves through history as well, the pattern of redemption, the assurance that corruption can be cleansed, knowledge restored, and power returned to its rightful purpose. This is why the story of the last Adam is vital. Jesus not only overturned the first Adam's disobedience, but also revealed what humanity looks like when divine knowledge perfectly aligns with divine love, when ultimate power is exercised wholly in submission to the Father's will, and infinite capability flows through flawless wisdom. His miracles were more than supernatural feats. They were glimpses of creation functioning as intended, healing replacing sickness, abundance instead of scarcity, life overcoming death, and order prevailing over chaos. The resurrection represented more than just triumph over death. It marked the start of cosmic restoration. It is the initial sign of a new creation, where the corruption caused by forbidden knowledge will be fully healed, and where the boundaries broken by rebellious beings will be completely restored. However, this restoration is not solely a future promise. It is a present reality for those who choose to align with the last Adam's perfect obedience, those who submit their knowledge to divine wisdom, wield their abilities in service of divine love, and use their power to heal rather than harm. This is the call arising from our study of forbidden history, not to stay ignorant of the past, but to learn from it, not to fear knowledge, but to seek it in proper relationship, not to reject power, but to use it according to divine design. The cosmic temple defiled in Eden is being restored through the cross. Knowledge corrupted by rebellion is being redeemed through submission. Power once abused for destruction is being reclaimed for creation. Yet this restoration demands acknowledgement that we still live in the wake of that ancient corruption, still facing the consequences of forbidden knowledge. We remain challenged by how to properly handle powers beyond our understanding. Archaeological findings continually uncover remnants of ancient civilizations that reach great heights but ultimately succumb to corruption and downfall. Genetic studies reveal the intricate origins of humanity while affirming our shared identity as bearers of God's image. Ancient writings hold memories of both the grandeur and the sorrow in humanity's connection to the divine. Together, these insights lead to a singular conclusion: we are more than we seem. Within us lies the capacity for tremendous accomplishment and severe corruption. We possess knowledge and power that can either uplift or ruin us depending on our choices. The hidden history of humanity's origins shows that we have always been caught between two paths: the first Adam's path, which leads to corruption and death, and the last Adam's path, which brings restoration and life. Each choice we make aligns us with one destiny or the other. Our decisions about how to wield our knowledge and power guide us toward either Eden's corruption or the New Jerusalem's restoration. The cosmic story that started in a garden still plays out in our hearts' homes, communities, and nations. The same forces that once physically walked the earth continue to impact human affairs through our decisions and loyalties. Yet we are not left to navigate this alone. The divine wisdom that was granted to Adam in the garden is accessible to us now through the spirit of the last Adam. The broken relationship caused by rebellion can be restored through faith. The calling lost through disobedience can be regained through submission. The forbidden history we've studied is not just about them. It is about us, not just about the past, but the present and the future still unfolding. In that future, every mystery will be revealed, every question answered, every corruption healed, and every tear wiped away. The cosmic temple will embrace all creation, and we will truly understand what it means to be human in a universe designed for eternal divine fellowship. Until that time comes, we exist between the memory of Eden and the hope of the New Jerusalem, between the corruption brought by the first Adam and the restoration offered by the last Adam, between forbidden knowledge that causes death and redeemed wisdom that grants life. We live as God's image bearers in a world undergoing renewal. We are caretakers of knowledge and power that can either heal or harm. We are participants in a cosmic narrative that started before time and will persist into eternity. The choice faced by our first parents remains before us. The same serpent still murmurs the same lies, and the same tree of the knowledge of good and evil continues to offer its forbidden fruit. Yet we also have access to the tree of life. We can opt for submission instead of autonomy. We can accept the restoration provided rather than follow the corruption that feels natural. We can align with the renewing cosmic order instead of the condemned cosmic rebellion. This is the core meaning of the forbidden history we've studied, not merely to understand our origins, but to decide our future. Not just to know past events, but to shape what lies ahead. Not simply to learn of cosmic happenings, but to take part in cosmic restoration. The narrative that started with the first Adam reaches its fulfillment in the last Adam. The temple defiled in Eden is being renewed through the cross. The fractured relationship caused by rebellion is mended through faith. Regardless of our origins, ancestry, or personal journey, we are invited to join in this restoration, to claim our role in the cosmic temple, to fulfill our calling as God's image bearers, and to engage in the healing of all creation. The hidden history of humanity's origin is also the official story of humanity's destiny. This destiny embraces all who choose to accept it, those who acknowledge their need for restoration, and who follow the wisdom of the last Adam rather than the corruption of the first. The invitation remains open, the path laid out in the cosmic temple awaits. The real question is not if we are worthy, but if we will respond, whether we will follow the way of restoration or fall into corruption, and whether we will align ourselves with the renewing cosmic order or the condemned cosmic rebellion. Comment 1 if you feel inspired to reclaim the spiritual purpose humanity was meant for. Comment 2 if you find the narrative compelling but still have questions before you decide. Ultimately, this is more than history, it is destiny. This is the story that includes us all, whether we are aware of it or not. A story that started in a garden and will end in a city where God and humanity live together forever. The forbidden history has been uncovered, hidden truths revealed, and the cosmic narrative exposed. Now the choice lies with us. The future is being shaped, and the story moves forward based on the decisions we make next. The questions we have examined are not mere intellectual puzzles. They touch the core of human existence. If the story we've uncovered holds true that Adam was not the first biological human, but the first spiritual representative, then everything shifts. Your identity is shaped not by genetic descent, but by spiritual vocation. Your value comes not from lineage to the first man, but from the invitation to share the relationship he was given. Your purpose is not confined by biological beginnings, but broadened by divine possibility. Consider what this means for your self-perception. You are not simply a random assembly of atoms that accidentally became conscious. You are not merely the outcome of aimless evolutionary processes. You are made in the image of the divine, intentionally created, invited into relationship, and designed for eternity. The yearning you feel for something beyond the physical realm is not mere fantasy, it is spiritual remembrance. The awareness that you are meant for more than survival is no illusion, it is a divine summons. The desire for meaning beyond biology is not a dream, it is the reverberation of Eden within your soul. However, this insight carries responsibility. If you bear the divine image, if you share the priestly calling given to Adam, and if you are invited into the cosmic temple encompassing all creation, then your choices hold immense significance. Each decision you take either leads you closer to Eden's restoration or deeper into the corruption that followed the fall. Every relationship you nurture either mirrors the divine love that formed you or the brokenness that alienated humanity from its origin. Every word you utter either contributes to the ongoing creation of reality or furthers its destruction. This is not about earning salvation by good deeds. Rather, it is about understanding that salvation's impact goes well beyond personal forgiveness. By aligning with the last Adam's perfect obedience, you enter into the cosmic restoration already in progress. You participate in the grand healing work that will eventually encompass all creation. The archaeological findings we've mentioned are more than mere historical curiosities. They demonstrate that humanity has always possessed greater capacities than we often recognize. Genetic studies go beyond mere data on human origins. They reveal the complexity and variety inherent in our species. Ancient texts are not simply religious relics from early cultures. They safeguard memories of realities that modern minds find difficult to grasp. Linguistic analysis is more than an academic exercise. It uncovers deep meanings that reshape our understanding of existence itself. All these findings lead to a shared conclusion: we inhabit a universe far more profound and meaningful than materialistic perspectives imply. We are part of a cosmic narrative that began before time and will persist beyond spatial limits. Within us lies the potential for both profound corruption and remarkable restoration. The forbidden history we have examined shows that the divide between natural and supernatural realms has always been more permeable than commonly taught. Interaction between different levels of existence has been more frequent than we've been told, and the impact of spiritual realities on physical events has been more substantial than generally acknowledged. This perspective does not undermine the value of scientific study or logical analysis. Instead, it broadens reality's scope beyond the limits of materialism. It encourages us to acknowledge aspects of existence that go beyond the physical without giving up intellectual rigor or empirical evidence. The God who created the physical universe also set the laws governing it. The divine intelligence behind the genetic code also established the mathematical principles describing cosmic phenomena. The same wisdom that shaped Adam from dust also ordered the stellar processes forming elements. Science and faith are not adversaries here. They are complementary methods for understanding different facets of a unified reality. Science examines how things operate while faith explores why they exist. Conflicts between science and religion often arise from mixing categories using scientific methods to resolve theological questions, trying to extract scientific facts from sacred texts, expecting empirical data to give ultimate meaning, or forcing spiritual truths to fit materialist frameworks. Yet when each stays within its proper realm, they can reveal different aspects of one cosmic narrative, a universe governed by discoverable laws, but with purposes beyond mechanical functions. beings formed by natural processes yet endowed with supernatural significance. This explains why Adam's role is significant, not because it challenges the scientific account of human evolution, but because it highlights aspects of human existence that science alone cannot answer: questions of meaning, purpose, moral duty, spiritual destiny, and connection with the divine. These are not scientific queries, but they are real, emerging from authentic human experiences that require answers, even if such answers cannot be quantified or tested scientifically. The image of God imprinted on each human soul cannot be found through genetic testing. The call to connect with the divine cannot be seen through a microscope. The duty to care for creation is not written in DNA. Yet these truths influence human actions in observable, measurable, and meaningful ways. They account for why humans produce art, pursue justice, make sacrifices for others, long for something beyond themselves, experience guilt when wronging others, and hope for redemption. The forbidden history revealed does not oppose scientific findings about human origins. Instead, it offers a framework to understand why those origins are important, why consciousness arose, why moral reasoning developed, and why spiritual awareness transformed humanity. Adam's story is not in conflict with evolutionary biology, but focuses on questions biology cannot address: not how humans gain the ability to relate to God, but why that ability exists; not the biological processes behind moral awareness, but what moral awareness signifies for human destiny. This perspective frees both science and faith to fulfill their distinct roles without needless conflict. Science can explore the workings of creation without the pressure to provide ultimate meaning. Faith can tackle questions of purpose and destiny without being limited by empirical methods. Moreover, it shows why both are essential for a full understanding, because we are both physical and spiritual beings, living in time but created for eternity, governed by natural laws yet destined for supernatural aims. The cosmic temple Adam was tasked to serve includes both physical and spiritual realities. His priestly role involves stewardship of creation and mediation between realms. The relationship offered to him involved both physical fellowship and spiritual communion. When that relationship was broken, both realms suffered. The physical world fell into futility, corruption, and decay, while the spiritual realm became inaccessible to ordinary human experience. Though damaged, the bridge between heaven and earth was not destroyed. The restoration provided by Christ deals with both sides of the damage: physical healing and spiritual reconciliation, renewal of matter, and restoration of relationships, redemption of creation, and regeneration of beings. This explains why the New Testament describes salvation so comprehensively, not only as forgiveness of sins, but as transformation of nature. Not just personal redemption, but cosmic renewal. Not only spiritual blessings, but also physical resurrection. Not merely escape from the world, but its recreation according to God's plan. The forbidden history we've studied shows that this full restoration was God's original intention. From the start, God meant for heaven and earth to be united, not divided, for the spiritual and physical realms to be integrated, not separated, and for divine and human natures to live in harmony, not conflict. Adam's role was to help achieve this unity as a priest in the cosmic temple. His failure caused separation that impacted all aspects of existence. Christ's triumph restores the opportunity for integration for all who willingly join. However, this restoration is neither automatic nor guaranteed. It demands a response, a decision, and active participation. The cosmic temple is being rebuilt, yet each individual must choose whether to enter. The bridge connecting heaven and earth is being restored, but each person must decide to cross it. The invitation is open to all because everyone bears the divine image, has the ability to relate to God, and can take part in the ongoing cosmic restoration. But this invitation must be accepted, the calling embraced, and the relationship chosen. Here, the forbidden history we've examined becomes deeply personal. It is not merely about ancient events long past, but about the decision every person faces in every era. The choice between the corruption tied to the first Adam and the restoration offered by the last Adam, between independence and submission, between self-rule and divine guidance, between fleeting goals and eternal purpose, between the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. The same serpent that whispered deceit in Eden still whispers lies today. The same temptation to be like gods apart from God continues to allure every human heart. The ongoing choice between divine wisdom and human arrogance shapes both individual lives and collective futures. Yet the same grace that reached out to Adam and Eve after their rebellion still pursues every human soul today. The same love that would not abandon humanity despite their failure continues to seek relationship even amid our resistance. The same hope whispered in the first promise of redemption is still offered through the perfect sacrifice of the last Adam. The cosmic narrative that began in a garden will end in a city where God and humanity live together forever, where the cosmic temple embraces all creation, the tree of life grows beside the river of life for healing. The nation's forbidden knowledge turns into freely shared wisdom, and corrupted power transforms into perfectly exercised strength. Until that time arrives, we exist in the interval between the fall and restoration, corruption and healing, separation and reunion. We live as exiles from Eden, but as citizens of the New Jerusalem, as fallen bearers of God's image, but as redeemed children, as broken representatives of humanity, but restored priests in the cosmic temple. The forbidden history has been uncovered, the hidden truth revealed, the cosmic story exposed. The invitation stands, the choice is clear, and the path is ready. What remains is your response, your decision, and involvement in the story, still unfolding your choice between the destinies of the first and last Adam. This is the question echoing in every human heart. Will you enter the cosmic temple being restored? Will you accept the calling first extended in Eden? Will you claim your place in the story that began before time and will continue into eternity? The forbidden history of humanity's origin is now the authorized invitation to humanity's future, a future still being shaped by you, your decisions and your response to the love that has pursued you since before birth. The cosmic temple stands ready. The tree of life calls, the river of life flows. The invitation remains open. The question persists, what will you choose?